Most people will shy away from discussing their failures. They'll gladly tell you about the awesome new contract they just signed, but not about the deal they spent months working on only to see it slip away. Not me. Talking about failures helps me deal with them. That is why I'm not afraid or ashamed of talking about this today in front of a worldwide audience, or at least my 25,000 people here. So in this video, I'll share my biggest failure as a businessman, at least up to this moment. I turned down an acquisition of my company which ended up costing me $2 to $3 million, and I'll explain shortly how. In the meantime, let's add some stock footage here of burning money, because that is exactly how I felt. As I'm smarter today, I'll talk about when to sell your business and what makes it more valuable. But first, some context to this story. I started working as a freelancer 10 years ago, and eventually I founded my agency BrideDoc, which grew from there. I was quite good at my job, I worked with clients worldwide, and the only way from there was, of course, to scale up. BrideDoc was the next logical step in my solo freelancing career. So if you were wondering, the acquisition in question was about the purchase of BrideDoc. Stay tuned for the whole story because I think that I'll offer some great insights. In the early days, I was lucky to find great people to hire, and BrideDoc grew really fast. We won the Lloyd's Award twice for being the fastest growing tech agency in this part of Europe. At the same time, I'm the #1 freelancer on freelancer.com, the platform where it all started. Our growth was supercharged with a smart cold outreach strategy. We basically created a formula that helps us find great leads at scale. Anyway, let's get back to this story. After paying all the expenses and taxes, BrideDoc's yearly profit was around 200,000 euros. That's a lot of money in my country, especially for such a small tech agency. I was 28 at the time, and I thought that nothing could touch me. Selling my agency never even crossed my mind, although it was extremely hard for me. The stress levels were beyond extreme. I had 30 employees and contractors on payroll and around $100,000 in monthly expenses. I haven't had a real vacation for years, and I was extremely overworked. Finally, the stress that was boiling inside came out in the form of super severe panic attacks. Because of how severe those attacks were, I ended up in the emergency room several times with symptoms of a heart attack. Fortunately, I was able to get rid of them, and now I feel much better. I made a whole video on how I did so, and I hope that it will inspire you or help you. There will be a link at the end of this video, but first things first. In the meantime came a business failure, which at that time I thought was my biggest mistake. I didn't realize that my biggest failure was right around the corner. Have you noticed how self-help books always share stories with happy endings? They talk about those who risked everything and made millions, or worked like madmen to achieve the unimaginable. Yet we rarely find autobiographies of people who bravely pursue their dreams only to fail completely. Despite the optimistic messages of self-help experts, everyone faces failure at some point. And of course, you learn that later in life. At the peak of BrideDoc's existence, I thought a good business idea would be creating a new social app. The idea seemed great on paper. People who share the same hobbies or interests, or just want to hang out, will find each other through this app I called Hook, and we've had a unique way of doing so. The hype was so big that the app was #1 in app stores, but under the hood, it was a mess because it was a rushed project. I invested nearly $100,000 of my own money into Hook, but the project burned and crashed. Again, the link to that will be at the end of this video. So if you think I wanted to sell my agency after all of this, you are wrong. Let's first talk about what makes tech companies valuable. This will help you understand why I declined the offer that would later turn me into a millionaire. So I believe that there are two things that make a company valuable: its employees and its systems. I'm not talking about big companies like Tesla or Apple here. I'm talking about newly hatched businesses with no more than 50 employees. There are probably thousands of similar companies in this part of Europe alone, but nobody cares about them because they don't have systems that matter. Let me explain. You can be a visionary CEO, but ultimately it comes to your workforce to build around and on top of your vision. You can start small by yourself as a solo entrepreneur, but eventually you will need help. As in my case, scaling is the logical next step, and for that, you need people. Your business will flourish if you surround yourself with people who understand your vision and want to grow with you. Simply put, your company will have more value if your team has value. The second one is the system. If you can set up a system that saves money, makes more money, or helps you grow, this will increase the price of your business. If your business has good systems and great talent, you will be an excellent target for acquisition. Big companies or investors will want to buy your business simply because of that. And you guessed it right, I'm of course speaking from my experience. My agency had a great system and great talent, so the next step for us was an acquisition, of course. I'll talk about systems again towards the end of this video and what they were. 4 years ago, a no-name investment fund approached me wanting to buy the agency. I can't name them as we had a mutual non-disclosure agreement in place, or NDA, but please bear with me. They offered 1.5 million euros in cash and a performance bonus from 500,000 euros to another 1.5 million euros over a period of 3 years. Meaning, depending on how well I perform post-acquisition, that's how much money I will take home. Their idea was to build a huge agency with hundreds of employees that could service the needs of the whole region and beyond. Because of my previous work experience with global companies, they wanted to have me as a general manager or CEO of this new agency giant. So if everything performed as planned after 3 years, I could end up with 3 million euros in my pocket. In the worst case, I would receive only 2 million, which is still great, right? I know this sounds amazing, but most of you realize by now that I didn't take the offer. Here is why. I was young and vain. I didn't want to sell my baby in which I invested so much time and energy. Of course, I had doubts and I couldn't sleep for nights. I believed in the growth and success of BrightDog, and I decided I would wait for a better offer. But the better offer never came. Do you remember what happened almost years ago? The COVID pandemic hit and everything shut down. Let's now talk about systems again, because this is what at the time eventually led to my fail. My vision was to create a lead generating machine where we receive hundreds of new leads on a monthly basis. As I said before, our leads were coming from cold outreach. We made a framework and a system for acquiring new leads through cold emails. Opening and response rates were great because in our campaigns, we always offered value. That fund thought that we are attractive at the time because those business leads would secure them plenty of new clients. Because of that, their investment will be paid off only in a couple of years. So when the pandemic hit, all of our leads worldwide went silent and businesses were afraid to invest more money into our services. Everyone was concerned not only about their health, but also about their businesses and tried to save money. With all our pipeline shut down, we were forced to live on savings. As I said before, the agency had around 100,000 euros in monthly expenses alone. This was super hard. My system didn't predict a worldwide shutdown, so eventually we lost revenue because we couldn't find new clients. We had some work, but it wasn't enough to keep all my employees and rented office spaces. And eventually, I had to let go of most of my employees, ending our office lease and basically downsizing the business. The acquisition offer wasn't on the table anymore either. If I had accepted the offer a year before the pandemic hit, I could stay at home with 2 million to 3 million euros in my pocket. This way, I almost lost everything. When the world started moving again, I had already spent hundreds of thousands on expenses. I was flat down on my face and I couldn't get any lower, but also I knew I couldn't give up. If you find yourself in a situation like this, I advise you to accept responsibility for your own failure. When it comes to failing, our egos become our worst enemies. If you made a mistake, admit it. This is what helped me to rise again. I've decided to move on with contractors instead of full-time employees, and I've ditched the office spaces. Everybody can work from wherever they want as long as the work is done on time and well. We resumed our cold email campaigns and found some great new leads. Right now, my business is growing better than ever. The main takeaway from this video is that companies buy systems. Our cold approach system was really good. However, I didn't predict any options for how this system would work if we lost the ability to find leads. My advice to you is to think about systems in your business. Set them up from day one. Think about how you can improve and scale. Write down what you did and create a business mind map. At first, create smaller systems for HR, operations, sales, marketing, design, development, and so on and so on. If those systems can be scaled, the business is sellable. But instead of selling, think maybe about licensing your business. You will get less money, but you can keep your business, learn, and grow it in another direction later if you want to do so. So only sell your business if you don't have value in employees or intellectual property that is worth lots of money, or if you can scale your systems from, let's say, hundreds to thousands. In the end, let this sink in. Failure is an unavoidable aspect of life, so the sooner you embrace it, the sooner you can move on. And make sure to check those videos I mentioned earlier. I'll see you next time.